Good evening, everyone. I am Amit Thokal, and I thank the audience and our speakers for joining our webinar on drones for disaster management. Today's webinar is for officials from national and state disaster response forces, government and private organizations engaged in disaster management, and individuals seeking to understand new technologies in this field. On our presenter panel today, we have Captain Stephen Anand, retired, General Manager, ideaForge, and our esteemed guest speaker, Brigadier Kuldip Singh, retired, Senior Consultant, National Disaster Management Authority. Today's webinar is divided into two sessions. The first session will be of 30 minutes. In this session, Captain Stephen Anand will share his knowledge on how drones are used for disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster relief. Captain Anand will also share his experience in leading disaster management efforts during the floods in Uttarakhand. This will be followed by a power pack discussion with Brigadier Kuldeep Singh, who will share his experience and role of NDMA in disaster management. The second session will be a Q&A session of 15 minutes. While the presentations are going on, I request the audience to type in their questions in the Q&A box in the top left corner if you are using your laptop or desktop, and the bottom right corner if you are using your mobile device. Your questions will be taken during the Q&A session only.
The designs of these aircrafts vary from case-to-case basis, and just for a broader understanding, broader classifications could be a multi-rotor specification. It could be a fixed-wing aircraft as well, or it could be a hybrid variant combining both VTOL as well as fixed-wing capabilities. What are the advantages in general when we're talking about drones? And then we can probably gradually graduate to why drones are significant in disaster management. So if you look at the slide right now, we are mapped with respect to features, advantage, and benefits. Some broader features and advantages are listed there. One is the small UAVs are packed with punch, you can say. They give good amount of endurance, which can last from 40 minutes to even 120 minutes. So thus giving an advantage of longer duration on the target wherever we are willing to fly. It will in turn assist in our disaster management and improving our preparedness, and also our rescue and response time efficiency will be improved accordingly. The capability to fly not just in day but also in night enhances our rescue effort capability in this case with the help of drones. And most of the time our users are concerned about how safe is the link, which is the videos which have been transmitted from the UAV to the ground control station. So let me assure you that it is completely encrypted data. The operator or the user who is actually operating the system on ground, the entire video is recorded, and he will be the only person who will be able to have the access of the entire video screen for his post mission analysis. So in addition to that, it is also enabling a quick deployment capability for the rescue and relief teams who are deployed in very constricted and confined spaces. So it is man portable. It can be shoulder carried as well, which gives him better agility on the field. So even those circumstances where he will not be able to carry out an operation using motorable roads and using four-wheelers or two-wheelers, for example, he can actually shoulder carry it and then climb. I will later part of the presentation, I'll share my own personal experience of how we have assisted relief operations in Uttarakhand with the help of the same systems what we're talking about. And again, the other advantage is the ability to operate from confined spaces. So that actually gives an added advantage for operators in this field. So let's talk about ideaForge. ideaForge is a company began by, founded by 3 IITs. Yes, our company had a technical collaboration with DRDO at the beginning. It was quite a tough journey for us to begin with, to convince customers about the technology what we have been developing so far. I'm talking about 2007-8, where people were still figuring out what UAVs and drones are all about. And we showcase the ability to carry out demonstrations and thus penetrating those vital markets that is in a surveillance sector. So with that small step, we were able to have a 90% market share as of now, and almost 800 systems have been deployed in the field with over 1,300 pilots trained by ideaForge. I think we are able to successfully carry out more than 140,000 missions across the terrain, across the geography of our nation, you can say. And our willingness to improve our business pipeline is also unmatchable to a great extent, because our presence in the market is significant. So we do have the honor of being the co-chair in FICCI committee, as well as in various other regulatory committees organized by the government of India. So ideaForge's class-leading UAVs are spectrum of UAVs. We are talking about Ninja. We call it as Lightweight Scout. We have V series, which is an endurance champion. Switch, an all-terrain dominator, and of course we have a Pro series as well, which is exclusively developed to carry out payloads which are having probably 500 grams or up to 2 kilograms of requirements. So our UVs have an all-up-weight VTOL category of spread across from 2 kgs to 7 kgs, all these variants. And essentially, they are all carrying the capability to give the best of high-definition videos with the help of a good field of view, and also have the capability to fly starting from 2 kilometers to even 15 kilometers. And so I'm talking about Ninja, which begins with 2 kilometers range, and then Switch is the higher end of the variant, which can fly for 15 kilometers. And yes, the endurance is also spread across from 25 to 120 minutes. So in addition to that, because of our journey and our interactions with the defense sector, we were now pushed to a great extent in terms of technology and delivering military-grade products. So that actually enhanced our capability to deliver products which can be operationalized even at a operational temperature of -10 to -15 to +55 degrees Celsius. So, and coupled with that, capability to even take off and operate at a very high altitude of probably up to 5,000 meters at tough and challenging weather conditions makes us and these products very unique. And yes, it comes with terrain hugging and terrain avoidance capabilities as well, depending on the customer's requirements. With multiple fail-safe features on board, it makes the system safe, the operation safe, and gives immense amount of confidence to the users when they are carrying out such kind of operations, where you need quicker deployment and you need focus on the target area. So, now what is the disaster data look like? At least in our country, we just thought of gathering some data based on the International Disaster Database. We are looking at data from 2000 to 2017. Almost 300 natural disasters which our nation has faced, and more than 75,000 deaths and a good amount of economic loss as well. And we are not going to say that it's not going to happen any further. It might be enhancing. It might be probably getting worse with the COVID-19 situation as well, and also the climate changes which are constantly having a deeper impact on our environment. So the most crucial part in the entire response is to react and to respond within 72 hours, which is very critical to save lives, right? And to get the situational awareness. So, but what are the challenges which we normally are facing now, like in an ever expanding rural and urbanization? In fact, are we equipped to and are we prepared enough to to cater for those changes? And how good are we in terms of being situationally aware to respond to these challenges thrown by these sudden disasters? And then what happens post the disasters? What kind of assessments, how accurate are these assessments? How efficient and effective are these assessments? Which is very crucial for us at this point in time, right? And post that, we are also concerned about rebuilding efforts and then monitoring the progress on those rebuilding efforts. So these are the huge challenges or broader challenges which I think are presented in front of us in the present day scenario. So, with the help of UAVs, yes, to a great extent, I believe we will be able to be better prepared. And maybe I can take you through the use cases. In this case, the UAV has a capability to map and simulate the probably risk-prone areas over a period of time based on periodic mapping, and not just terrain. We're talking about even inspection of infrastructure as well, and then carrying out multiple levels of simulation so that our preparedness is at the highest, towards those disasters which we are anticipating. In terms of post damage assessment, I think again it's a great tool for us to utilize the this particular technology in this particular domain, which is pertaining to post damage assessment, especially with the ability to zoom in and then figure out the level of damages, especially with the ability to carry out day and night operations, and also to have an ability to reconstruct a 2D and 3D imageries based on the maps what we have generated from the UV, would actually enhance our planning capabilities to a great extent. Uh, these images are live images taken from our systems, which are actively deployed in during Nepal earthquake. Currently, our disaster response team, they are having our UVs, and they are effectively and efficiently they are using it in different areas. Response and recovery, and again, this is a great an experience for me personally when in the year 2013 when the Ministry of Home Affairs had given us a call to that time we were a very small company, and we were requested to. They knew that we had a capability, and then we were requested to assist the rescue and relief efforts, and we were very happy to dispatch a team of 4 with our systems, and we were heli lifted, and then we landed at one of the ground zero, you can say, above Gupt Kashi, and we were using our Netra to a great extent. We were able to fly the system and then identify those areas where we need to send our manpower, rescue teams to carry out rescue operations. That was a great experience. At least on that day when we had landed, we were able to save almost more than 260 lives on that particular day who were stranded, in a small pathway, because of the tough weather conditions. The airlifting capabilities were not there at that time, so it was hampering the rescue operations for almost a week, and we were very happy to contribute in that. So all these operations we were able to do that with these systems in a very confined space with the capability to shoulder carry. And yes, the system also comes with a supply drop capability as well, where the aircraft can be affixed with probably first aid kits or maybe food packets or medical supplies, which might be a very important aspect in terms of improving the scope of survivability of these survivors, you can say. So what is the impact of ideaForge drones? It's been measurable to a great extent. So you can see in the screen, the UV can fly longer. The UV has a response time for more than 86% reduction in the emergency response time when you compare it with a team of search and rescue, operations team who are probably mobilizing themselves from using a vehicle. But we will have a faster response if in case we can dispatch our UVs and have an aerial view of the affected area. And yes, certainly the efficiency also increases many folds. And above all, I think we have a greater capability to have a bird's eye view on the entire area which has been affected and impacted. So almost 25%, 25 times you can say is the the impact in terms of area coverage compared to a normal human-based surveillance and response, you can say. Uh, with that, we let me take you through a very important, you can say, phase in the life of ideaForge, where we were very proud to be associated with BMC. I think Brigadier Kuldip would also acknowledge to this exercise. It was a great exercise where our BMC in Mumbai were using our drones to enforce lockdown during this current COVID-19 situation. As you all know, that this is a notified disaster, and let's now see how and what kind of impact was created um, in the fight against COVID-19, right? So this was a small case. That is, we have taken Dharavi. As you all are aware, that it's a densely populated place, almost 277,000 persons per square kilometer, which is humongous. And today the world is talking about the Dharavi model. So, and we are proud to be associated in that model. The problem statement was very clear and simple. This was in the beginning of the spread of COVID-19, which was happening in Mumbai, and to safely conduct contact tracing in Dharavi location, conduct surveillance operations with whatever limited manpower which was available with the BMC. Solutions, we were quick to respond, and our tech teams were quick to respond and to come up with the requirements posed by this state disaster response force, as well as BMC was quite appreciated throughout. So BMC deployed our Q series UAVs, which have the capability to fly for more than 40 minutes in air, with ability to carry a high definition daylight payload. They were able to detect the movement of the people on the field, and then they were able to transmit the video, which was sent from the UAV to the ground control station. Then it was transmitted directly to the command and control center. You can see that on the screen right now. So based on the footages, based on these live footages, the BMC and its operations team, they were able to take effective steps to mobilize their manpower resources to the right places, and thus were able to curtail the spread of the virus, you can say. And it was a real-time response, and they were very happy with the ability to transmit and also fly for longer hours. So that was a big shot in the arm for the ground units. And what are the other benefits? So one case study was, of course, of Mumbai's, but I'm very proud to say that our systems have been used during this notified disaster, during this COVID-19 scenario, uh, almost around 10 plus states in the country, and then we had a wide coverage of a media as well, which actually helped people in understanding that yes, in under these circumstances, technology can also be used effectively to fight the enemy who is not visible in our to our naked eye, isn't it? So yes, and our Netra Pro UV was designed with a quick integration. You can say a very specific request had come up that we had to integrate a megaphone in the UV. So that time we had UVs which are having the capability to carry multiple image capturing devices, but may not be a megaphone device. So this was a very quick action which our tech team took, and R&D was uh, uh, quite efficient in developing a model where the local ground forces were able to communicate with the general public, and the UAV was flying in the air, and they were able to communicate and also visually see where people were, positioned in, let's say, in terms of on a rooftop or under a flyover or something like that, and they were able to identify and then immediately disperse the crowd off. So that's another big a plus, you can say. The results are also staggering, isn't it? So almost 25 times increase in area under surveillance, given the speed and given the capability to vertically take off and land and reach faster when you compare it with, probably traveling by road. And 3 times increase in surveillance speed. There is no doubt about it. The aircraft also has a capability to reach places where even CCTV cameras are unable to reach and cover those blind spots as well. So that enhances the local team's situational awareness. That's very much obvious. And also, most importantly, our frontline warriors in this case were not impacted at all. So that's a big plus for people to have confidence and adopt this technology and use it under all circumstances. So with that, let us move on to Brigadier Kuldeep Singh. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Brigadier Kuldeep Singh. Was commissioned in the Indian Army in the year 1976. Apart from the regimental staff, technical, instructional, and command appointments in the military, he has also participated in operations Op Rakshak and Op Vijay. And he has served in India's Defense Research and Developmental Organization on two national level projects from 1988 to 1992, and has been the Director, Intelligence Coordination and Defense Intelligence Agency from the year 2003 to 2005, and was the longest serving, you can say, from 2006 to 2015 as the head of the Defense Wing in the Joint Intelligence Committee, that is a National Security Council, Secretariat, and also Prime Minister's Office, where he specialized in strategic estimates, intelligence handling, advanced technologies, nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, and CBRN and space technologies, you can say. Presently, he is working as a senior consultant in the National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India. Brigadier Kuldeep Singh, sir, we welcome you on board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll be very happy to seek your, experience and insights on certain questions, which probably we'll be discussing in this session going forward. So probably, can you take us through on how has the raising and the establishment of NDMA reformed disaster management in India?
Yeah, you see, the disaster management in India is perhaps one of the oldest laws in the world, and has got its roots and genesis in the Great Famine of 1876, which lasted till 1878. And after which, the Famine Commission of India of 1880 and the Famine Relief Board was formed. Now, post this continued, and it was generally thought in India that most disasters are linked to either drought or famine or floods, and it continued to be vested with the Department of Agriculture, and after independence with the Ministry of Agriculture, and this continued in that manner. However, in between, a need was felt to have a proper disaster management agency, and it is the 2001 Bhuj earthquake, and thereafter the tsunami of 2004, which gave impetus to a disaster management act. So in 2005, the Disaster Management Act was enacted, and the Government of Allocation of Business Rules 1961 were modified, and disaster management was transferred from the Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of Home Affairs, with some parts of disaster management going to specific agencies. For example, drought went to Ministry of Agriculture, famine went to Ministry of Agriculture, epidemic went to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, etc. So after that, what has happened is that the Disaster Management Act created a three-tier institutional mechanism. You had at the national level, at the state level, and at the district level. So at the central level, you have the NCMC and the NEC, the National Executive Committee, which is assisted by the NDMA, and it also led to the formation of the NDRF and the NIDM, the National Institute of Disaster Management. At the state level, you're supposed to have, every state is supposed to have the SDMA, which is the State Disaster Management Authority, which is supposed to be under the Chief Minister, the Honorable Chief Minister as the ex-officio chairperson. And along with that, you're supposed to have the SEC, the State Executive Committee, which functions under the Chief Secretary of the state. In addition to that, every state should have a SDRF, that's a State Disaster Response Force. At the district level, you're supposed to have the District Disaster Management Authority, and of course, all the other things like fire and emergency services, etc., which are under it. So today you have a three-tiered institutionalized disaster management system. And we generally classify, it is not a law, but we generally classify disasters into three parts. L1, which can be managed by the resources and the wherewithal that is held by the district. L2, which is manageable by the state. And L3, which is requires intervention by the center. So when I say L1 or L2, it does not mean the entire state has to be affected. It doesn't mean that. It means that maybe even one district or two districts in a state have been hit so badly by a disaster that the state administration is overwhelmed. And then, of course, is L3. So that is how we are looking at this whole thing.
Thank you, sir. My second question would be to understand in India, in general, who is responsible for disaster management?
In India, you see, this is a tricky question, because what has happened is that disaster management does not figure in any of the schedules of the Constitution. It doesn't in the state list or the concurrent list, the central list.
Okay.
But additionally, because it was being handled by the states, it is now a state responsibility. Please note, it is not a state subject, but it's a state responsibility. So that's how, the states are responsible for handling all aspects of disaster management. The center pitches in with four major assistance packages. The first one is that the center runs what we call the NEWS, the National Early Warning Agencies, which are mandated for providing warning or alert for hazards, natural hazards, which can be forecast, like tsunami, cyclone, floods, as also post-disaster information, detailed post-disaster information of disasters which cannot be forecast, like, for example, earthquakes, and in some cases even landslides and all that. So you have, agencies like the IMD, the CWC, the INCOIS, the SASE, for avalanches, and INCOIS, of course, for tsunami. So that is one part. That is one type of system. They run these agencies, fund them, and these agencies are linked to the control rooms in the MHA, as also to certain ministries. Plus, they are also connected to the states and the district. Okay. So apart from routine alerts, whenever there is a state-specific or a district-specific alert to be given out, these are sent directly to the districts as well as the states. So that's one. The second is that the center has nodal ministries which are responsible for national level coordination of epidemics. Okay. The third is the NDRF. You are well aware that we have, 12 battalions, 4 under raising, and with 16 or even with 12, this is the largest disaster response force in the world. Yeah. No other country has such a large, disaster dedicated disaster force. And lastly, the center provides aid, funds, resources, assistance in building capacity. So 4 things: the National Early Warning Agency, nodal ministries, NDRF, and of course resources and aid and assets. So that's what the structure of responsibility and the structure of disaster management is.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for that insight. So what is the role of NDMA in disaster management? So if people have to understand.
Is the most apex level body in the country on disaster management. So it has the Honorable Prime Minister as the ex-officio chairperson. Apart from that, it is responsible for laying down policies, plans, and guidelines for disaster management and coordinating their enforcement and implementation through various central ministries, the departments, and the states. So it's also mandated to deal with all types of disasters, natural or man-made, and lays down policies plan, like I mentioned. There's overarching, a vision and oversight of everything which is happening.
So what are the problems, you can say, that disaster managers face in the immediate aftermath of any disaster, be it a man-made or a natural disaster?
This is a very live problem which disaster managers face. If you take any disaster, any natural disaster, starting off from earthquake to floods to cloud burst to landslides to cyclone or to tsunami. There are two things which are happening in every disaster. The first one is that there is deterioration of the surface transport connectivity.
Okay.
Your roads, your rails, your buns, your airstrips, your helipads, they get disrupted. Now, the level of disruption varies. You may have the road intact or a bridge gone, or you may have the road gone, the bridge intact. You may have airstrips which are flooded. You may have, rail lines which have been washed away, etc. So, surface connectivity takes a very big hit, no matter what the kind of natural disaster it is. The second is your communication gets disrupted. So together, if your landline is disrupted, your fax is disrupted, your internet cables are disrupted, and some of the mobile towers have fallen down, there's a power cut and power goes. Either you have cut the power in case of floods, or in case of cyclone, the towers have fallen, as it happened in the case of Odisha, and so then you have, disruption in communications. The basic that now this together, since movement is limited, surface transportability disruption limits your movement. There's debris everywhere, or roads are flooded, you can't move out, so therefore your movement is limited, and flow of information gets restricted because of disruption in communications. Now, this tends to lead to a kind of void of information. Now, today you would agree that, disaster management is no longer just another administrative task. It has become a political imperative. It's in fact become an imperative from the point of view of sustainable development. No state can continue to reconstruct what has been destroyed in the past instead of focusing on making new things. So it's become imperative for sustainable development. Now, because of these issues, information flow for timely, saving of lives, saving of resources. The problem is that most disasters also lead to a secondary disaster or a secondary problem. For example, you really saw Kerala presents us a very live case study of how rains led to a secondary disaster. Dams started overflowing. If you did not release water from there, you could have had a much larger catastrophe. Okay, earthquake can lead to a dam crack and things like that. So therefore, information flow, getting of information, movement of responders, resources at the earliest possible is required. But in absence of limitations on movement, you can't come to know, your situation awareness gets limited. Information is not coming in. So that is where, drones come in very handy. And this is a medium we have been trying to propagate across the country to say that start looking at UASs. In fact, I would like to correct one impression which has been going around. We do not call it at the NDMA level and at the national level, we are not referring to them as drones or UAVs. A UAV is just a toy, which many of the children fly around today. We are referring to them as a UAS because it's a UAV with the load. The load may be, a communications package, it may be a thermal camera or an EOI load or anything. Now, all this is now married to analytical software. For example, if you have a drone which is flying with a geotagged camera and you want an immediate picture of what is happening, you really need analytical camera which can take that picture and put it bang onto the GIS platform at the right coordinates. Now, this analytical package, along with the camera, geotagged camera, and the flying platform becomes a UAS. So we are talking actually about UASs here in our context and not UAVs. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think in this conversation, we have already come to the next question, and that what kind of role are we envisaging in the disaster management as far as UAS is concerned?
Yeah, you see, we are finding in fact, it is one of the most versatile component which has come up. And we have been telling people that the market for UASs in disaster management is perhaps larger than the market in defense. You don't fight wars every day. So the turnover of UASs in the armed forces is not as much. However, India is very vulnerable to disasters. If you read about vulnerability of disasters, we are very vulnerable to disasters. We are about the second or third most vulnerable country in the world. Okay, so with that as the background, and with the states wanting, over the period of time, so you will find the market for UASs is far larger. So USS today can be actually studied. The role of USS can be not. It is not a clear cut, divided roles because there are overlaps. But you can generally study them in four components. One is pre-disaster. In pre-disaster, you have hazard vulnerability mapping of urban, rural areas, forests, all kind of terrain. You can go in for mapping of all these places for hazard vulnerability. Okay, the next is to confirm disaster risk reduction decisions. You have taken certain decisions to reduce the disaster risk. Okay, there is, let's say, a floodplain which you do not want to be inhabited by people. So instead of regularly sending people down to inspect the floodplain, you can have a UAV carrying out a run. You can say, at the periodicity to be defined by you, once a week, once a month, or whatever you want, to carry out a reconnaissance of the entire floodplain. Okay, so a DRR implementation decision is what you are checking. You can have implementation of plans in case of early warning of a disaster. You have a tsunami alert. Let's say on the east coast of India, you have been given a tsunami alert. Let's imagine there's been an earthquake in the Andaman Nicobar archipelago, and you have got now about 3 hours or 2 hours to evacuate the parts of the east coast of India. So the timing is so short that you really don't have, the ability to go down on ground and check every single village. Driving down will take you that much time because people are also moving out. There's traffic, there's outboard traffic. So you, especially the fishing villages along the coast, you can use UAVs and carry out, monitor the movement of people out from these coastal areas. And this is what we have actually done in 2018. We had done, entire East Coast tsunami exercise, and we were using drones to, along with aircraft from the Coast Guard to monitor evacuation. That whether all this has been evacuated. And I must say, we had a huge success in using both aircraft as well as drones to monitor the evacuation. Successively we were flying them and coming to know that how much has got evacuated over a period of time. So that's in pre-disaster generally. In post-disaster situation, after the disaster, like I mentioned, you can use them for building situation awareness, because the roads are blocked. There's debris on the road, there's water on the road, or there is, buildings have fallen in wake of an earthquake. So you can fly drones, you can come to know exactly how much damage has happened where. And that is actually based on that information, you can then make your IAP, what we call the incident action plan for the first 24 hours, and then vector your resources, your responders accordingly. So this is a great help in building of situation awareness. Then search for victims. You have small drones today, which can go into a building which is very badly damaged, and they are fitted with a combination of a switchable microphone speaker. So you can move the drone inside, make it land, and you can use the speaker turned into a microphone to send out a message to say, if anybody is alive here, knock. The drone is now switched off, so you don't have to send any person inside. So the moment somebody knocks, the microphone then picks up and transmits a message to you. You can talk to that person, and you can inspect the inside of a building. In fact, you'll be surprised to know that Chernobyl has been mapped from the inside for the first time using drones.
Okay.
An immense amount of inspection of Chernobyl, the way it is, it's now been contained with that massive shield. But inside it was very radioactive. But they are now used drones to map the entire inside and find out what's the condition of everything inside and what state it is in, and also carry out radioactive readings and all that. So they've done that. Then third is immediate relief cargo delivery. For example, in the case of Nepal, certain areas were cut off. So you could send a small package with a radio set and some medicines to the people, and then a doctor here could talk, okay, what is your problem? The person says, look, I've got diabetes. Okay, we are sending you some, those injectables, and you can use that. Or somebody says that I've got, a heart problem. So we are sending you this medicine, take that medicine in that much quantity, and this talking to the small relief packages can be sent using cargo drones. Then, of course, the monitoring of the status of the disaster. Is there a secondary disaster that is building up? The response, you can monitor the response. Where are the responders? What have they done? Where have they reached? Have they finished? If they are finished, can they be diverted to the next place? Where is the access to the next place? So this guidance through of the responders can also be done. And mitigation efforts, establishing temporary communications. In fact, the United States Special Forces have been using a hover UAV. Okay, they were using a hover UAV, which now they have given out to FEMA. So the FEMA uses the hover UAV. The UAV is sent up, and it has got a small GSM, network capability. So all the if the communications are out, the responders there, about 100, 200, can log on to this GSM small little internal network, and that's how work can be progress faster. If you are in touch, communications today is the key to disaster management. Right. And of course, in PDNA, you can post-disaster need assessment. It's a huge thing. You carry out assessment testing using satellite imagery, change detection. You map it alongside with, juxtapose it with drone imagery or UAS imagery, and you're able to do post-disaster need assessment. Other uses are for firefighting. In the case of in the French, the fire which you had over there. Most of the fires inside were discovered by amateurs using drones, after which they, started using Notre Dame fire I'm talking about. Then in or movement of hazmat materials, there's been a case in which UAS was fitted with 3D printer. It dropped a 3D printer over a hazardous stick, made a container, lifted it out, and took it away, all without human intervention and not requiring any PPP, etc., or people going in. And epidemics, you have delivery of samples, medicine essentials, curfew enforcement, identification of affected persons. And in restoration, the USs play a huge role. For example, facility inspection. Your entire electricity lines can be inspected, your dams can be inspected, your entire row of roads can be inspected, your water pipelines can be inspected in one go for damage. And of course, for claim reconciliation, you can use it. So this is what we see the role of USS in disaster management.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for these insights. We are very happy to bring you here, and it was very insightful for us to know the other side on how the national disaster management is happening so far, and how much coordination is required, and how we can actually marry technology and disaster management and make it very effective and efficient. You can see, to have a culture of prevention and mitigation and prepare our forces for all those eventualities. Thank you for sharing all these insights. So thanks a lot. Amit, over to you. We are now willing to take the questions from our participants.
Thank you, Captain Anand and Brigadier Singh, for sharing your expertise on disaster management with our audience. We will now begin the Q&A session. The first question from our audience is directed at you, Captain Stephen. The question is, in the Netra Pro UAV, do you have live announcements or only pre-recorded messages?
Oh, that's a good question. So we have live announcements. So we have integrated the megaphone with the aircraft, and this was a quick development which happened over like what, 72 hours or something like that. We were able to do that. So in this case, the police officer will be holding on to his communication device sitting in the ground, and then the megaphone is integrated with the aircraft, and the aircraft can also travel for good amount of distance and then climb as well. And so therefore we can communicate with even people who are on rooftops. You know how Mumbai city is mapped, right? So we have different kind of terrains, and yes, it's a live communication. It is not a recorded communication.
Thanks,
And they visually confirm and then communicate. So that's another added advantage here.
Thanks, Captain.
You're welcome.
The second question is for you, Brigadier Singh. In most disasters, awareness of terrain plays an important role. How does the local community play a role in the organizational level of NDMA? Is there a plan for taking it to the last level of governance, that is the panchayats?
I'd like to answer this question with three responses. Firstly, NDMA of the last 3 to 4 years has been very heavily focused on exploitation and leveraging of technology to mitigate disasters, as also in disaster management. And this is being encouraged in every way possible, at every level of the government, down to the sea. So that's one part. So second part is that, like I mentioned, you have the state disaster management authorities and you have the district disaster management authorities. We are encouraging, and they are, the district disaster management authorities are also, having their own mechanisms for dealing with disasters. And we are also empowering down to tehsil level and panchayat level with things like radio sets, warning systems. And then, of course, you have what is called the incident response system, the guidelines for which were notified in July 2010. This is supposed to be the preferred disaster response mechanism for all states and districts of India. And you're supposed to have an incident response team down to tehsil or the block level.
Thank you, Brigadier Singh. The next question is for you, Stephen. It's actually a bunch of 4 questions into one. So I'll ask you one by one.
Sure.
What is the max distance and height a drone can cover?
Okay. So as I had covered in the previous slide, our systems, the product variant specs is quite a large spectrum. You can say our systems can fly from 20 minutes to even 120 minutes. So that's a huge spectrum of endurance what we are talking about. It can also climb from, let's say, 200 meters to 1,000 meters altitude, that is above ground level. So it depends on the variants what we are trying to pick up. And endurance, we have covered range. The launching capabilities also vary. As you know that India is having different kinds of terrain. So our systems are designed to be operable even from multiple altitudes. So in this case, certain systems can be operated from even at an altitude of 3,000 meters above mean sea level. And certain high capability systems, in this case Switch, has a capability to be to take off even from an altitude of 5,000 meters AMSL. So I hope that answers the question, Amit.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll ask the follow-up questions from the audience on this.
Yeah.
So where is the feed stored? Should the operator be in the same region to receive it? And what is the communication link with the ground?
Okay. So the feed, essentially, it is the telemetry data, the uplink and the downlink. We are talking about the video feed is stored in the ground control station. The operator has full access to it. It is not stored in the cloud. So which means the data which is transmitted from the UAV is safe. Only the operator will be able to see. And yes, it also has a capability to transmit the live video feed using another indigenously developed software, which is if it's available in a command and control center, if it is installed there, then we will be able to transmit that live video feed acquired from the UAV directly to the command and control center as well. Does that answer the question?
Thank you, Stephen.
What is the second question which you have asked apart from it?
Yeah. So should the operator be in the same region to receive it? And what is the communication link to the ground?
Yeah. So in this case, it is our systems are beyond visual line of sight in terms of when it is flying for long ranges. We are talking about 2 kilometers, 4 kilometers, or even 15 kilometers. Obviously, we have limitation to look at the aircraft and fly. Yes, it is a line of sight product, but having said that, one need not you can say worry about what is going to happen when you're flying beyond visual line of sight. And second thing is, yes, it is using a non-licensed 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz band to communicate with the aircraft. The operator has an indigenously developed Bluefire software in his tough book, with which he'll be operating the system.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome.
The next question is for you, Brigadier Singh. The question is, how does the flow of information managed in a post-disaster situation, such as to control fake news, particularly when the situational awareness information has a very short shelf life?
You said fake news.
Yeah, particularly fake news.
Okay, like I mentioned, fortunately, in the wake of a disaster, communications do get affected. And that includes the internet in case of major disasters. So, fake news, we also have a method of filtering out fake news and validating genuine information. This is one part. We are crowdsourcing information on the 112 or 1070, the disaster helplines and all that. So all calls that come in are validated for this thing. But the fact also is that we are not only going by these calls, we are also using multitudes of other methods. For example, in the wake of a disaster, the first thing that happens is that the EOC at the district level or the state level immediately asks people who are on the ground, officials on the ground, for example, the policemen, the other officials on ground, to send out reports to their respective offices, which are then filtered up to the EOC about the damage outside. For example, if there's a particular police post, it will send the damage report of its area to the nearest thana, which will then throw it up to the emergency operations center. So that is one, reports by officials. Then, of course, is, what is called aerial survey using fixed wing helicopters fixed wing aircraft and helicopters, and, use of UASs to confirm what's been the damage on ground. Then, of course, we use ham radio, information coming in from hams, NIAR, National Institute of Amateur Radios, etc. So all this information is put together. It is not that we are just taking any information that is being fed to in and we are only reliant on social media. No, a huge plethora of information is being put together, and it is synchronized, it is integrated, it is analyzed, and then a damage report is being prepared.
Thank you for answering that question. My next question is for Captain Stephen. The question is, how does the government provide for exemptions for night operations in a post-disaster situation?
So you can take an example of the current scenario. In this case, what has happened with COVID-19. So the government was quick to respond in a favorable way towards the the rescue operations team. You can say, coming up with a Garud portal where all the agencies who are involved and who would like to carry out operations using UAVs, and the Garud portal enables them to register their aircrafts and their operations there, and then seek exemptions. It's a very smooth process. So there, the government is assisting and enabling them to carry out both the operations which is required to be flown in that particular area. The DGC is allowing it.
Right. Thank you, Stephen. My next question is for both of you. Stephen, you can take a shot at this, and Brigadier Singh would can add on to it. The question is: are drones used in vulnerability mapping, like terrain changes for landslides, caving of embankments for potential floods, and also blockages in drains causing flash floods? Are such scenarios used in the past?
So yes, our team, as I had said earlier, I think in the year 2018, I'm not. Please pardon me if I'm not accurate with the data, but our team, ideaForge team, was dispatched with our mapping UVs to Karnataka when one of the cities had faced. I think it was in Coorg when it had faced landslides and a lot of lives and economic loss had also happened, and then we mapped the entire area, and then gave it to the local administration. They were immensely thrilled and very happy to know that the aircraft can pick up, and the output was so much useful for them that they were able to map and then carry out their post disaster relief management and probably even reconstruction and rebuilding part of it. So yes, it is very, very useful in those scenarios. So probably even Brigadier Kuldeep can speak on that. So
Yeah. Yes, that's right. There are many examples of drones across the world being used for these aspects.
Amit.
Yeah. Thank you. And the next question is again, Stephen, for you. So the question is that what is the current market for drones and disaster management in India? And I believe in part Brigadier Singh has also answered this. So I leave it up to you. Who wants to take this question?
Probably Brigadier Kuldeep can say. So.
Yeah, I have already mentioned. I personally think you see the market for drones as India is progressing. You see, there's a huge amount of we. This is a topic which is very vast. There has been three defining trends, in the 21st century, and one of those trends is a move towards cities. Is a
Right.
move towards cities. So. What we assess, all most assessments say that roughly about 50% of India would be staying in urban spaces in another 10 years. By about 2030, 2035, 50% of India. Right now the figures are about 24, 25%. So 50% of India would be staying in urban spaces by another 10, 15 years. Now, and we would have many more cities the size of Mumbai, about 8 more cities the size of Mumbai, and a huge, and roughly the assessment is that 50 to 70% of the infrastructure in this country has yet to be built. Has yet to be built. So when you look at the expanse of the development, then if you juxtapose is with the requirement of mapping in future for disaster risk reduction, for disaster management, urban spaces are what is called melting pots for disasters, because you have all this thing. The lifeline networks need to be protected. So in many cases you'll find that there's a huge market that would come up for drones, starting off from small to big. And of course, in the rural spaces, the use of drones will be something slightly different. But in urban spaces, and the surrounding areas of urban spaces, there would be a requirement for mapping many things. Today, for example, you are using drones to check road space availability, traffic guidance, state of roads, etc., and all that. So there are so many uses that are being found for UASs and all that. So I think the market is huge, and this is a very ubiquitous kind of a tool which is available for cross-domain utility.
And
Thank
I would like to highlight the fact that I think Sir had already highlighted in his presentation about the need of UAVs in different segments, right? In pre-disaster, post-disaster, and all. So one can actually correlate the need with the market. So in this case, there's a huge scope for the UAVs to be integrated in this management, I guess.
you. In fact, Stephen, there's a follow-up question on this for you. So, Our audience is asking, how can we get a live demo of the drones?
It's possible that they will have to contact our business team there. You're already having a link right flash in front of your screen, and all you got to do is just reach out to them, and they'll be very happy to accommodate your request.
Thank you, Stephen. We have exceeded our time, but I'll take this one question. It's interesting. The question is for you, Brigadier Singh. Does NDMA have funds allocated for projects like new technologies exploration and use cases development?
I'm not sure of that, but yes, there are funds for new projects. There are a large number of funds for new projects, and I'm not aware of the details because I don't handle that part of the thing. But yes, there definitely are funds for new projects.
Thank you, Brigadier Singh. So with this, we bring an end to our Q&A session and our webinar. I once again thank the audience and our guest speakers and Captain Stephen for joining us for this webinar. I hope it was beneficial to all of you and the content was what that you are looking for. If you have any queries, you can call us on +91 91520 30613 or write us on business@ideaforge.co.in. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.